Hello, and welcome to Ethanol Producer Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Katie Schroeder, contributions editor with Ethanol Producer Magazine. Today I have with me Jason Shipley, president of Midwest Custom Engineering. Welcome to the show, Jason. So glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And as we get started, could you share a little bit about your background and what Midwest Custom Engineering is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we are is not just an equipment provider, but we actually solve the problem. Whatever the solution needs to be to get that problem solved, we look at it start to finish and we can make recommendations or we can be a supplier for that. But no matter what, we want to make sure that the client is getting the solution to what their actual problem is. So, a lot of the people in the industry, I think we see where they are just selling stuff. And we don't just want to sell stuff. We want to actually make sure that we're getting to the bottom line. Midwest, we were started, basically just as an OEM manufacturer for other OEMs. And that's kind of how we got started. We were cutting out parts for other people, and then we started building our own product lines. And then after that, we built more and more product lines. And now with the addition of Jason Bliss, we're building hammer mills and we're building aftermarket parts. So we're excited about that future.
That's exciting. It sounds like you see a lot of ethanol plants up close. I'm curious, what's one thing about how they run their grind systems that you wish more operators understood?
There's so many components to that. And I think people just look at a hammer mill and they think, yeah, I've seen that before. But there's so many factors like the airflow, the tolerance of the screens, and then like how the wear parts are working together as a system. Because you got to look at it's not just about one segment of the mill, but the entire grind system, the airflow, how it's feeding, the quality of your grain, how much foreign material you have in there. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And I think people kind of put it into a box, but it's so variable that there is no one off-the-shelf solution for anybody.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It seems like some producers can see grinding as a small piece of the plant, but it has an outsized effect on the bottom line. Why should producers care about their grind system as much as you do?
Well, the grind really is the front door of the plant. Everything else downstream depends on getting, your grain to the right particle size. And if you get it wrong, then fermentation and yield are both going to suffer. So a finer, more consistent grind exposes more starch, which means more ethanol per bushel. And then even a small yield gain across millions of bushels, I mean, we know that's real money.
You built a reputation on premium hammer mills and wear parts. What actually makes a hammer premium, and what does that translate to in uptime and cost per ton for a facility?
Yeah, so premium isn't just marketing. I mean, it's actual metallurgy. It's how you do the heat treatment. It's the hard facing. It's the edge geometry and the manufacturing consistency. So, there are different ways of manufacturing, and people who aren't in the manufacturing of hammer mills probably don't realize that. But, it just costs more to manufacture a certain way. And we do offer a variety of different hammers, but, our premium hammer is a 60 Rockwell hardness, and we make sure that we can ensure, typically we're seeing somewhere between 10 to 30% more wear life in those hammers. But once we know that that is right for the customer, obviously depends on what you're grinding, depends how much foreign materials in your product. Depends, I mean, if you're grinding, a lot of rocks or dirt, that's going to wear it out a lot faster, right? But just depends on what the customer is grinding. But most people are going to see an improvement no matter what they're running by going to a premium hammer. And then we also offer, premium wear parts for the rest of the mill too. So just building them out of harder materials that will wear longer and last longer. That's the key.
Awesome. The grind system is often the bottleneck in a plant. When a producer calls you, what problems are you seeing most often, and how are you helping them cut unplanned downtime?
Yeah, so I would say when we see throughput falling off or particle sizes out of spec, a lot of times there's excess vibration, premature wear, screen blinding, or, sometimes they're having some downstream fermentation or yield complaints. Uh, Most of that root cause traces to worn or mismatched wear parts. Sometimes it's the wrong screen. Sometimes we'll recommend putting one size of screen on one side of the mill, another size of screen on the other side. Just depends. A lot of times they're just literally running the hammers or the wear parts past their useful life. Basically how we help is we find the right size of hammers, get the right clearances in the mill, and we make sure that everything has the right tolerance so that basically you can move plants from run failure to planned maintenance. And then that way you're basically able to keep your downtime to a minimum, and you can predict your cost, you can predict your downtime.
And that predictability is vital. I'm moving on to kind of a different topic. There's been a lot of consolidation in this space lately. As an independent, how does MCE compete on parts and service, and what should a plant look for in a parts partner?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's a lot of long-standing suppliers that have been absorbed into larger groups, and that can change your service lead times, pricing. We're just ourselves, right? We don't care about what our competition is doing so much. We're just focused on what we can do and what we can do well. We're an American company, not just American workers. We're American owned. We buy American steel. We support American manufacturing all the way from start to finish. And we compete on service and parts availability and engineering support, not just a catalog. We'll build what is fit for your plant, for your mill, and what actually is going to run, including other OEMs machines. So, we're not necessarily beholden to what we sell. We're beholden to what's right for the customer. And so what you should look for in a parts partner, obviously availability and lead time is a factor, right? Cost is a factor, but do they understand your process? They don't just sell parts like, I need your serial number. No, like, do they understand your mill, and how fast do they move when you're down? And do they stand behind the parts that they're manufacturing? I think that's the key.
Yes, absolutely. For MCE, looking ahead to the next 5 years, where do you see grinding and milling technology going for ethanol producers on efficiency, automation, and sustainability?
Well, we have a mandate within our company where we're always looking to obsolete our own technology, preferably every 6 months. We're trying to find new, innovative ways to make it just a little bit better all the time. We spend a lot of money and effort and energy on R&D, and we're always looking for the best next thing, right? We're looking for ways to improve our own technology, but in 5 years, we'll probably find a way to completely obsolete our own technology. I mean, that's the outcome, right? So we want to find new, better, more efficient ways. We're exploring, vortex grinding technology. We are exploring ways to use wind shear disintegration. We are, exploring different technologies, different ways to make a more efficient, better grinding system. And that is the American way, the American spirit, I feel like. Efficiency obviously is a key. Everybody wants to have efficiency. And I think automation and AI can actually help with that. It really is helping to monitor every downtime. It's monitoring every wear part. It's monitoring, bearing sensors and all those things. I think more sensors on the mill, monitoring amp draw, vibration, particle size feedback. It'll predict wear. It's going to become better and better at, scheduling changeouts and getting the maximum performance and maximum life out of all wear parts. That's a huge factor, right? So we are on the forefront of developing some of the most, I guess, AI integrated automation that I've seen. And I feel like that eventually will be the key to grinding better and longer.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of this insight, Jason. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd love to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, we're just a small company. We're trying to be out there to serve the customer. And no matter how big we get, we're always going to be there with that customer-centric philosophy. So, we have a lot of fun things that we do too. We have our own little mini series, Made in America Reawakened. So if you know somebody that would be a good fit for that in the ethanol industry, we would love to do an episode on an ethanol producer and just have them reach out to us. I think that would be fun. And then also, we have a good time when we have marketing. We have a couple of funny commercials out there that people always think is kind of interesting. We had a take on, Jack Reacher. We were just, having fun. So we like to have fun. And obviously in business, you have to make some money, but really we believe in making a difference, right? So we want to make sure that we are making a difference in the community and the world. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, Jason. And thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in to Ethanol Producer Magazine podcast. For more industry insights, news, and events, check out ethanolproducermagazine.com. Thank you so much and have an excellent day.